Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.
Hello and welcome to the Local Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Kelly. Now, when my producer, Robin, found out that I was doing podcasts, he said, you have to have Rosemary Jenkinson on. And I said, who's Rosemary Jenkinson? And he went, you're going to love her. You are going to love her. She's amazing. She's an author. And then he whispered and he went, she writes about sex sometimes. So I whispered that, okay? So Rosemary, you're very welcome to the Local Woman Podcast.
Yeah,
you're a real
great.
life author. You're a full-time author, yes?
Yes. Well, I work part-time at Queen's, but otherwise.
For anybody listening who's wanted to become an author, how did you do it?
Just put a pen.
I mean, is it that simple? Do you
It
just
is.
put a pen to paper and start writing?
Yeah, there is no other way. I had no connections. No, I'm afraid my parents weren't famous publishing company or something.
So where are you from? What's your background?
I was born in East Belfast and have returned.
Yes. And where were you in between?
Oh God, everywhere. Where do I start? Well, I went to university in England.
Yes.
And then I went, teaching abroad, lots of different places, France, Prague, Poland, all sorts. And I also lived in England for a good while as well.
So you came back home and you didn't start writing properly, I guess, until you were in your 30s. You weren't a published author.
That's right.
So how did you go from just somebody who likes writing to being published?
Yeah, I used to send out like manuscripts,
And nothing?
millions of them.
Really?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what did they say? No.
Usually just no.
No.
Thank you, but or maybe try again or something, but no. So anyway, I tried for years and didn't get anywhere. And then finally I came back to Northern Ireland, 2002, and therefore I think I got a local publisher, Lagan Press, to be interested in me, and they published my very first back in 2004.
Tell us about your first novel. What was it about?
Well, it was a short story collection at the
Right.
time, and just a lot about abroad, but also a lot of Belfast. About coming back to Belfast after the peace process, because
Yes.
I hadn't been anywhere.
Yes.
I'd come from the Troubles straight to peace,
Yes.
which is quite a big culture shock.
It is, yes. And I always say this, for people who are listening to this who are maybe younger, they sort of don't get this.
Yeah.
But we grew up in a very strange time in Northern Ireland. I'm 50, so we grew up in a very odd time where there was like a war going on, but we just
Yeah.
got on with our lives in a really strange way. We just got on, we went to like discos and we partied while there was like riots going on. It was quite an odd time. And then you moved away to England where it was safe, came back,
Yeah.
and everything's all lovely and shiny in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, and I went to the Falls where I'd never been, and it was like the bogey place. You know, during
Yeah.
the Troubles, you would think
Oh, you
that's
wouldn't
where
go
all
there. Yes,
the
Protestants would not go
paramilitaries-
near.
You would never go near
No, you
that,
wouldn't.
so-
You'd have no reason to go there. Yeah.
So it was like, it was really sort of fascinating to explore, and it felt dangerous at the
Yeah.
start. You know, you're like, oh, does anybody know me here? It's weird.
So you got to see Northern Ireland through the eyes of somebody who'd lived in England, really. You got to see this
Yeah.
you got to explore this new
Completely
Northern
right.
Ireland. What did you think?
I thought it was great actually, because it meant I came back totally new. I hadn't kept any friends from childhood, so it was like I could meet friends from a unionist or a Republican background or anything. So it was just like completely fresh start as a kind of outsider. And that's what writers are, kind of outsiders. That's the mentality.
You're observing.
Because you observe, yeah. So it was a great thing to come back here. And also, I was nostalgic for it because of it's the friendliness that, well, look, we're not actually that friendly, because we're sort of people who are very family oriented and keep to our own little bubbles in a lot of ways. But it's the camaraderie And the
Yes.
laughing in a bar with total strangers.
Yes.
You miss that. England's not like that. So
No, it's not really. And we don't take ourselves that seriously at times.
well, we slag each other off.
We do.
Seriously.
There'll be a lot of slagging, and we're very non-PC at times as well, in a way that English people would be a little bit more correct and proper.
Completely.
We tend to be, just go straight in.
Yeah, we can be a bit brutal, actually.
We are, yes.
That's our reputation. Yeah.
But I like that about us. I like that.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's refreshing.
So, tell us about your first novel then. Your first complete novel.
I wrote one for the Lindenhall Library, and that's about imagining a kind of futuristic thing where there's going to be a United Ireland. So
Right.
that was one. But the one that's coming out in January is called The Memorizers, and it's imagining that World War III comes to Northern Ireland.
Right. So
Yeah.
all your novels are set in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Why? Why are they set here, but yet they're not set in Prague or England or France?
Well, I have short stories. I have individual stories set in that, but yeah, I think now that I've lived here now for so long that it really is under my skin and in my bones, and yeah, I know it so well, so it's easy to write about.
So as a writer, what is your process? Do you sit down every day and write?
Not every day. God, that would be boring.
Really?
Yeah. No, I mean, I know there's a certain amount of discipline we always say we have to have, but no, I would. I like working in the morning now,
Right.
Because it's fresh, But sure, I'll go off and wander off and do other things. Living to me is really as important as writing, because you have to have the material. So if I sit in my desk all the time,
You're going to have no material. So where do you get your material from?
pubs.
I love the honesty. So could there be people listening to this who are actually in your books and short stories who don't realise it? Yes.
Yes. many, and they will never realise.
They'll never
which
know.
is the beauty of it. Yeah, they don't realise the spy in their midst.
Okay, give me an example of a character that you've created that you have stolen, I guess is the word, that you have pinched off a real person.
Oh, yeah. The majority, actually. The majority, I would say. Probably someone in a pub. I mean, I've always liked writing sort of about ex-paramilitaries that I might meet in a pub.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah, I really
You find
like
that interesting? Yeah.
Of course, it's really interesting because those stories, they will disappear one day.
Well, I guess so, yes.
So it's
yes.
like you're recording history, not only
Yes.
literature. So that makes it really
And
exciting.
what pubs do you like to go to?
Oh, wow.
Oh, you can't reveal that because then the people in those pubs, are going to listen and go, "Oh my goodness!" So you obviously go to the now. For those again who are only listening to this and not watching it, you're quite a gentle lady. You have a lovely voice and an accent. You don't strike me as the kind of lady who would be in pubs talking to ex-paramilitaries. What do they make of you?
I have no idea, but they usually know I'm a writer, so no,
And
I don't.
they know
I
that
usually say
you're, and they're happy enough to talk to you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I think they want their stories told
Yes.
before it goes as well. And they like to, they love to probably reminisce.
I guess so,
many
yeah.
ways.
I mean, we're so unique in Northern Ireland that we did grow up around this kind of thing. I mean, I often tell the story about going to school and like nobody ever asked you, "Are you okay?" We grew up during the Troubles. It just wasn't a thing. You had, friends whose, I don't know, parents were in the police and they were killed, or you had people whose brothers were shot, and everybody just got on with their lives and it wasn't really talked about. I don't know why, but it wasn't. So I guess now that, we're in a very unique position and the storytelling, those stories need to be told.
Very much so. I do feel that we're probably in the last 20 to 30
Yes.
years of those, and then they disappear forever.
Yes.
And people do really want to talk about it and know about it. I think there's a huge sort of turnaround for those stories.
And we can't deny our past because
Yeah,
Northern
we
Ireland has
can't.
such a troubled past.
Yeah. I think, I always say that I don't like to be a Troubles writer. I'm not interested about Troubles writing, but I am interested about the stories that probably impact on now and have affected their lives.
The knock-on effect.
It's the knock-on effect. And how they've dealt with certain things that have happened to them in the past.
Or how they haven't dealt with it.
Or they haven't. It is even more interesting, indeed.
I mean, I think the sort of generational trauma that exists within Northern Ireland is very interesting, and it's something that I think needs to be dealt with at some point.
Well, yeah, I suppose people say it's done through literature rather than through a truth commission.
Do you think so?
Well, to a certain degree, yeah. I think it's, yeah, there has to be some sort of outpouring.
Yes. And obviously, as an author, you think that's maybe more a way to go. A truth commission is maybe too formal a setting.
Oh, no, I did think at the time there should have been a truth commission. Whether or not that time has passed because there's been so many years, I don't know. That's it. But I'm not sure. But I think, I mean, it helped South Africa so much.
Yes,
so,
of course.
I don't see why we shouldn't have had one. We should have had one.
Has anybody ever told you a story that's really shocked you?
Yeah, pretty much most people's
Really?
stories shock me. There's something in everybody's life is shocking.
Could you give me an example of that?
Oh, yeah. I suppose somebody who said that they found out that their mother was raped. You know, a thing like that. And I've had people tell me a lot about those sort of
Sexual assaults and things.
sexual assaults.
That, of course, weren't taken as seriously in Troubles Northern Ireland because the police were doing other things.
Absolutely.
And it was a conflict society, so things like that were sort of very much brushed under the carpet.
And for men and women.
Yes.
When they were young, you know, I mean, it affected men as those sexual assaults as much as women.
Really?
Well. Yeah. From what people tell me, yeah.
It's funny that it's funny that you still sit in pubs and hear all these stories. It's great. And that sort of the oral tradition of storytelling is alive and well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. At least we always have that here. We are really good at it.
So recently you've moved into poetry.
Yes, I have.
Now, a lot of people listening to this are going to go, oh my God, poetry. Because poetry is always a thing that you didn't want to do in school. Personally, I like poetry because they were shorter. I found it easier. Why have you decided to move into poetry?
I like them because they're shorter to write.
They're easier.
Exactly, Kim. Same as you. Yeah, but also, right, well, there is a real story.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened was I wrote a poem 25 years ago. It was only one poem. It was published in the Lonely Poet's Guide to Belfast. And then afterwards, what happened was a company in the USA, I was going to do a play with them, they wrote that I was a poet. And I said, I am not a poet.
Well, you are, because you've written a poem.
It was only one poem. I said,
matter, you're still a poet.
I don't write poetry. I don't do it. Anyway, it ended up on my Wikipedia page that I was a poet. And I have been telling people, I am not a poet. And nobody listens to me. And my short story collections were in a poetry section of a bookshop. And finally I thought, okay, destiny.
I need to write some poems here.
I have to be a poet and live up to this. Otherwise it looks like I'm lying.
You're making it up, yes.
I'm making it up.
Yeah.
So that's what I had to do.
I'm not sure I've ever met a poet before. So this is kind of a first for me. I'm really not sure that I've met a poet. So
there's plenty around Queens if you want to walk around every other person.
Really?
Yeah. It's very big. It's a big thing at Queens. Yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
As the young people say, it's a thing.
It is.
So, right, how do you write a poem? Do you just sit down and... I'm immediately thinking in my head, like, some kind of rhyming limerick. That's what I'm thinking of. Probably not that.
I do, like, I might do a rhyming couplet, but that's about all you're getting.
But you'll not do many rhymes. No.
I will not. No, I can't. Look, we're not brought up for our brains to be trained in that kind of old-fashioned manner.
You don't think so?
No, we're not.
Poetry's interesting. What do you think of the likes of Kneecap, the band? Now, for those of you who don't know who Kneecap are a band from West Belfast and Derry, and they rap in Irish. They also rap in English, I think, and they are a sensation. Everyone's loving them. They're going to be nominated for an Oscar this year by all accounts.
Yeah, they're doing
so
well.
They are, I guess, modern day poets. What do you think?
I wouldn't say lyricists or poets.
Oh, no, right.
They think, I'm going to be really snobby there.
Okay, that's fine, be snobby.
But it's like they give Bob Dylan the Nobel Writing Prize.
Yes.
And it's like, what? Are you joking?
No,
No,
you don't like that?
Come on.
What do you think of rap? Is it modern poetry?
Oh yeah, well it is poetry. I'm not saying it isn't because
Just
it rhymes.
not them. Just not kneecap.
Oh no, kneecap's good.
Yeah.
Kneecap's good, I think.
Yeah.
Well, if I could understand the Irish,
Right.
it might be even better. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're very good. Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't get into a bit of, because there does seem to be a crossover between poetry and rap.
Yeah, but I'm not musical, so it wouldn't
Right.
work for me. You'd have to be musical and a poet for that to work.
Okay, Rosemary, I'm going to address the elephant in the room now. I've heard that some of your work is quite saucy. Is saucy the right word? It sounds like... Okay, so we always whisper this at Local Woman because, Rosemary writes scenes of an adult nature.
Graphic, potentially.
Graphic. So, Rosemary, tell me about this. What goes through your mind when you're writing this? Dare I ask?
What goes through? Yeah, I'm not going to give you a blow by blow.
Insert your own pun here.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I know people like it. I think.
So, would you say that the sex scenes that you write are integral to the plot, or do you just do them for gratuitous purposes?
Both, really.
I love that you're admitting you do it because you think people like it. Well, people like it.
I know people like
I
it.
love it because they did. I mean, it's only like a few years ago. What's that book that I didn't like? 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, I never read it.
I did read it, and it wasn't great, but I could see why people liked it because it was probably the first time that sort of smutty it wasn't even that. I mean, it wasn't terrible, It was embraced and people were like, yay,
Yeah.
and I kind of, it wasn't particularly well written, but sure, who cares, and people felt a little bit empowered by it, I guess, that they could channel this. So yours is a bit more graphic than that though, isn't it?
Yeah, I like sort of giving the intimate look into what actually happens and to do it in a way that is funny, but also celebrates it and also shows sometimes how excruciating it is.
It can be clunky, can't it?
Yeah.
It can be clunky, yes. So again, I'm going to have to ask the question because I know everyone listening is thinking it. Do you like meet people and do you kind of like practice? I guess would be the word I'm looking for. Do you?
No, just my imagination.
Is it your imagination?
No, well, obviously it has to be a bit of practice.
Yeah, I've always been curious about this, guys. I've always been curious.
Yeah.
Like, does it come from just imagination or practice?
I think I have to have practice, and I think it's also about doing the things that modern dating, like I had to go on Tinder, for instance.
Tell us, spill.
Well, I can't bear Tinder because it's a load of chit chat. You've got to do all this. Oh.
Do you know that some people cut and paste the chit chat bit?
I wouldn't be surprised.
They do. So you went on Tinder. How did that go?
Yeah. So I had some nearly meetings, and then an hour before
ghostings.
So you're kind of like, I mean, it's a terrible place. But I did get one meeting out of it, and I wrote a short story totally about it. So
I must read it. What's the short story called?
Love in the Time of Lockdown.
Oh,
it was.
I love it. And how did this date go?
Well, I wouldn't exactly call it a date. It was more like a arrival at the house.
Oh,
one of those. A house arrival, we'll call it.
Oh, it was now what is it the young people call them? A booty call.
Yeah, I knew what you were going to say.
A booty call. I love that. Honestly, if you're only listening to this is a very respectable woman sitting with me. It's that, but I love that. I love your openness, and I love how
Not anymore. I'm not respectable.
She's not respectable now. I have just, honestly, that's her finished.
The whole cover.
She is going to be sacked by queens, everything.
But
you know what? I love now in this day and age that we can talk about stuff like this because, I mean, I laughed at the start when I went sex and whispered it because I'm 50. I come from the generation where God forbid you'd have mentioned your period or anything like that. And I love that we can be a little more open and women can be more empowered about sex.
Yeah.
And we have ladies here like you telling us how to do it.
I don't give advice though. I should. Maybe we should do an advice podcast.
We should advice on, from our very limited knowledge on the subject. But I do love that we can have a laugh about it and that we can talk about it, and probably, women who are our mother's age wouldn't, I'm sure if they could listen to this, they'd be like, girls, that's not an appropriate conversation.
Completely.
But I do love that we are now empowered and that we can talk about things like this. And I like that you're writing this from a female perspective, because I guess, like many people, I've read a lot of literature where the sex scenes are written by men. You're like, nah.
It always was, yeah. I mean, I love the sex scenes that are written by women.
Yes.
Colette, Anais, Nin. There were some really famous ones who wrote brilliantly. So there is a tradition of writing about sex. So you follow in that. But also I think the new generation is more Puritan. So I think it might have
They are a little bit, yes. Yeah. There has been a turn, because we're Gen Xers, the Gen Zs, no, they are not. They're not partiers, and they get married and stuff. No, they're not into that. Exactly. But that's fine. Things go in trends.
They go in, but we're in the way.
Sex is out of fashion.
Sex, no, we're pushing it up there.
We're pushing it out there. So this has to be a first for me, that I've met a poet who's teaching me about sex. And you know what? I am absolutely here for this. And it's been so lovely to meet you. Yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah. Let's give a plug for your current book, which is, before we go, Sandy Row Riots. Right, actually, no. Tell me about Sandy Row Riots. This is the poetry.
I meant to say, of course. Sandy Row Riots. Well, I had already given the title Sandy Row Riots before this summer. And then
they rioted on your behalf.
On my behalf. And I just thought, there you go. They made my book relevant. I kind of said Sandy Row.
Did you go to riots to research this?
I did. One in 2002 I went to, and I also went to the aftermath of this
that was horrendous, what went on this summer.
Yeah, so, but
it's a reality. It's a reality of living in this place, this place that we call home. I mean, yes, rioting is a big feature of what happens here. It's just one of those things, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's part of the culture.
And I'm going to have a little look at this. Sandy Row Riots, but there's no obvious sex in that one.
There is.
Oh, is there?
Oh, yeah. Not too
Sexy
much,
poets.
But there's a few. Yeah, there's a few definitely in there.
Rosemary Jenkinson, I'm shocked at you. Okay, thank you very much, Rosemary, for coming along. The very first poet that I've ever met, and a very interesting and very unusual lady. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim.
Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.